Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, I'm going to be acting as your instructor to deconstruct a really fascinating modern operational field guide called Mission First. Now, regardless of where you sit politically, analyzing this text gives us a truly compelling look at how modern movements are actively training their supporters to operate as highly disciplined digital warriors. So let's just dive right into the briefing. Here's our agenda for today. We'll be breaking down the manual's core doctrines across 5 key areas: selection of command, separating signal from noise, understanding the internal threat environment, practicing informed loyalty, and finally, executing the long game. Let's get right into the first section. Section 1. Selection of command. Understanding what it really means to be proven under extreme pressure.
The manual literally kicks off its boot camp by totally redefining leadership. It argues that true command isn't just granted by credentials or a title, it has to be proven under fire. Think about historical examples here, like Abraham Lincoln taking relentless press attacks and dealing with cabinet revolts during his first term, or George Washington holding the Continental Army together at Valley Forge while Congress heavily doubted him. The author evaluates leadership entirely on this capacity, the ability to absorb sustained attacks and just keep moving forward. The major takeaway: you don't choose a commander for comfort, you choose them for capability.
Now, as a digital warrior in training, you're explicitly instructed to completely ignore the daily noise of media narratives. Instead, the manual demands you judge a first-term command strictly by documented policy results. We're talking trade agreements, border policies, judicial appointments, the tangible stuff. The 24-hour media cycle, it's treated as a deliberate distraction. Policy results are your one and only metric.
Because under this unprecedented extreme pressure, leadership requirements have to evolve rapidly. Notice how a willingness to make necessary enemies is actually listed as a crucial requirement for structural correction. It's intense, right? The ultimate proof of genuine command is a leader's consistency over time, especially when they're facing maximum pressure to just compromise and give in.
Moving on to Section 2, separating signal from noise, navigating the modern information war. All right, now we're shifting to situational awareness and the battlefield of the mind. In an environment that's just saturated with psychological operations, distinguishing between mission-critical intelligence, which is the signal, and emotionally manipulative distractions, the noise, is an absolutely non-negotiable survival skill. If you let the opposition control your reactions, well, they control your attention.
To survive this environment, you have to memorize these specific markers. Doing this protects you from what the book calls the fire hose of falsehood, which is basically a tactic designed to produce epistemic helplessness, where you just get so overwhelmed you give up trying to find the truth altogether. Here's the test. If an input aligns with the mission, is verified by solid sources, and requires logical action, that's signal. But if it just triggers outrage without advancing any measurable progress, yeah, that's just artificial noise.
Let's look at Section 3, the internal threat environment. Why friendly fire is actually more dangerous than external opposition.
Having secured the perimeter, the manual then forces you to take a hard look in the mirror. It argues that the most dangerous person in any movement is not the enemy outside. It's the ally whose loyalty is just a performance. Ego, clout chasing, undisciplined speech on platforms. These things pose a far greater threat to mission cohesion than any external adversary ever could.
And this right here is the root of friendly fire. The text applies a really strict military framework, stating clearly that a massive social media following is not a command position. It's a critical distinction. When supporters confuse their platform size with actual operational authority, they end up generating these public, chaotic conflicts that the opposition will immediately weaponize against them.
Which brings us to Section 4, the strategy of informed loyalty, maintaining cohesion amidst complex internal and external threats.
To neutralize those internal vulnerabilities we just talked about, the briefing prescribes serious operational discipline. Now, you might assume a manual like this would demand unquestioning obedience, right? Actually, scratch that. The author totally rejects blind obedience, framing it as a complete liability. Instead, they demand principled, informed loyalty that's based on a clear-eyed assessment of the overarching mission. When the fog of war rolls in, these precise steps are designed to train you to hold the line. Say a leader makes a counterintuitive decision, or there's just complete strategic silence. You have to trust the process. You separate the facts from your anxiety, you locate the last confirmed order, and, this is absolutely crucial, you distinguish your emotional doubt from specific policy disagreement. If you have concerns, you raise them privately. You do not publicly fracture the movement. Finally, Section 5, executing the long game, aligning daily actions with long-term strategic objectives. For our final strategic module, we really have to transition our mindset. The short game, that's just a reflex. It's reacting emotionally to the latest viral outrage cycle. But the long game, that is a strategy. Winning isn't about owning someone online in a specific exchange. It's about aligning your daily actions with decade-scale objectives to actually build a durable institutional presence.
So how do you actually execute that long game? The manual insists that a supporter's voice, their platform, and their daily actions have to be perfectly synchronized. Your voice consistently states the mission, your platform amplifies it, and your daily actions must actively validate it. Unless these three pillars are flawlessly aligned, your efforts are just going to produce isolated noise rather than coordinated strategic impact.
Victory is not the result of a single action or moment. It is the accumulation of disciplined actions reinforced by unity and sustained through endurance. Ultimately, this manual serves as a really stark reminder. In any high-stakes conflict, internal cohesion and disciplined speech are literally the only things that prevent a movement from totally collapsing under pressure.
Which leaves us with a genuinely fascinating strategic question to ponder long after this explainer wraps up. As digital battlefields continue to evolve, will future political movements prioritize the emotional rush of the short game, or will they master the disciplined endurance of the long game? Thanks so much for joining me to deconstruct this framework. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.